My sophomore year in high school, I'd become somewhat proficient, at playing the baritone horn or the euphonium, to the point where Mr. Miller took my mentor, Bill Robinson, and sent him back to play trombone because they needed his leadership more than I did. I was excited and scared because now I had responsibility. I was first chair, and I had Pete. Pete was a freshman in those days, my protege. He believed, however, that he was God's gift to the baritone euphonium, a point that he made clear every single rehearsal and every lesson, that there was no doubt who should be first chair. And so about halfway through that first semester of my sophomore year, he offered a formal challenge for my seat. This was unprecedented. Underclassmen just didn't do that. It was a reward at best. Mr. Miller was taken off guard. He wasn't quite sure what to do. He said, "Give me a week and let me think about it." He came back the next week with music, same piece for both of us. He said, "I'm giving you 6 weeks. Prepare this piece, and then we'll see. I'll make my decision." Well, that's all I needed to hear. I busted my tail. Every free period I had, I was in the practice room. I enlisted my more musical friends to assist me. I even tracked down a recording of the piece of music, which was not easy because we didn't have YouTube. The day arrived, I was ready. I kicked butt. No doubt. It wasn't even a contest. I could tell by the smile on Mr. Miller's face that he was pleased that it was so cut and dried. He made his decision. I retained my chair, which Pete was still disputing. Pete may still be disputing it today. I don't know. I'd won. My first response was to be elated. I sat a little taller in band that day. But then it hit me that part of the job of being first chair was to be a leader. And to be a good leader, one had to bring others up, not demean. Which meant I had to help Pete become a better baritone euphonium player. And I began to work with him. It wasn't always appreciated, but it was noticed because other members of the lower brass section began to come to me and ask for help. And all of that didn't go unnoticed either. Because by my junior year, Mr. Miller had moved Pete to play trombone. And he gave me Roger. Now that's another whole story. By senior year, I was playing in the junior high band because Mr. Miller thought that my presence and my leadership might inspire and help some of the younger musicians. One of my proudest moments of my musical career was standing my senior year at the final concert with the junior high band. That was the night I knew I'd made it. To be a leader, to be great, is to be willing to stoop, to humble oneself. It's a lesson that Jesus tried to teach his disciples, not all that successfully, again and again. They kept insisting that they should decide who was the greatest. In fact, that was a discussion on the road one day, and Jesus asked them what they were talking about, and everybody got silent. And it was at that point Jesus puts a child in their midst and says, if you want to be great in the kingdom, you got to be like this. Now we think of kids as cute and full of potential, but in those days, children were nothing. 9 out of 10 of them wouldn't have made it to adulthood. They were worthless at that point. A burden. What do you mean, Jesus? If you want to be great, you got to be like this? It's a lesson they never do learn until after the crucifixion. But it is there they begin to recognize that God has humbled himself. God has humbled himself in Christ and become obedient unto death that we might have life. God dies that we might be made right with God, that we might enjoy the life in his presence. To be great is to be humble, to stoop, to teach, to mentor, to walk with, that we may continue to lift up the community, whether it be the church or the communities we live in or our nation. To be great means to be willing to be the least. A tough sell these days, but the truth. If you want to have a great life, give up a little of the life you have for the sake of others. Let us build a house where love can dwell and all can safely live, a place where saints and children tell our hearts learn to forgive, built of hopes and dreams and visions, rock of faith and vault of grace. Here the love of Christ shall end divisions. All are welcome, all are welcome, all are welcome in this place. Let us build a house where prophets speak, and words are strong and true, where all God's children dare to seek, to dream God's reign anew. Here the cross shall stand as witness and a symbol of God's grace. Here as one we claim the faith of Jesus. All are welcome, all are welcome, all are welcome in this place. Let us build a house where all are named, their songs and visions heard, and loved and treasured, taught and claimed as words within the word, built of tears and cries and laughter, prayers of faith and songs of grace. Let this house proclaim from floor to rafter, All are welcome, all are welcome, all are welcome in